Well, you already covered most of it for me, and there were definitely a lot of frustrations with how the book totally failed to spell some things out and was lacking in other categories. Like, I mean, what we got willpower back like 5 times ever as a result of how it was presented in the book. Um, but I have
Something that I'm sorry to interrupt. That's possibly something I failed on as well. There's so many optional rules for how willpower can be conveyed. I didn't want it to be so easily like a returned resource. The ability to obtain successes so easily on your dice rolls outside of combat. I thought it would be more cool if I made it like a limited resource. I don't know how well that turned out. I thought it would be a good idea to limit it and just make it so that you'd have to play to your natures in order to get it back.
Oh no, absolutely, and I mean that's the default way without any of the options as it's presented in the book. It just, I mean, David, for example, ended up coasting for most of the entire game at 1 out of 4. Um, but yeah, it's all sorts of stuff like that where they don't really go into the rules and what's expected and why you should or shouldn't take different options. And they tend not to provide examples either. Um, I just found the editing, I guess, very, very lacking with the book. Aside from that, this is exactly the sort of game that I thrive in. One that's got a relatively open setting where you get to pursue your character's plans and schemes and the fallout therein. Because I'm the sort of person that likes to see the characters fail and have to pick themselves up and deal with the fallout. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and to pick up and build off what both of you said, a lot of that was just the other people in the game. Because I can see a whole different way this could have gotten had there been different people. It could have just fallen apart. But I think, as Grimith said, everyone pretty much meshed. Was very capable of doing their own things and getting their things done in game without much uh, trouble, I guess is the word.
Yeah, you would never really think that four people will, four people that really have had no contact with each other apart from me and Aaron, and that was just through what 2 years of college, would come
Ish.
together this. Yeah, they would come together this well in a group like this. I mean, I will admit I came into this with some reservations, like what are the other people going to be like? I was
Definitely.
very I was very happy to learn out that everyone was the way they are.
Oh, and I'll tell you too, I was really stressed out. Well, not really, but for like the day before, I was kind of stressed out that this was going up onto YouTube. It was the public nature of it. I was a little wary of that when I started. I got over that 4 episodes or chapters in, I guess. But yeah, it was interesting there for me.
You get stage fright?
It sort of. I tend to if I can't. I'm like Byron in this instance. If I can't solve something right then, it kind of builds up, and I get neurotic about it. Not quite this at the height of neuroses, but definitely I get OCD, I guess, is the way I push it out of proportion. So yeah, that night before I didn't sleep well. The night before the first session, I will admit.
No, you should never go full Byron.
Love that movie. Love that movie. But yeah, that's the other thing is that one place I was really kicking myself is that I'm good usually with the role playing conversation things, but the thing that I've never been good at is the insults back and forth. I never have one liners to give someone. I can role play a position definitely, But there were several occasions where Grimith is really good at that, and he would bring up, he would say something witty to Byron that I just know the character would have a comeback for, but I had nothing. I could not re-insult them back because I'm just not that quick on that type of thing.
And sort of on that note, the one criticism I really have, mostly for myself, is that I sort of wrote Marcus into a hole. He's just a party boy. I wish I would have, when making the character, would have, made him more nuanced and have, not this one-dimensional this one-dimensional side of himself.
I actually have to say that at least in near the end, there was this, it seemed like the exact opposite to me. You took this what was essentially a one-dimensional character, and you seem to actually give him a lot more life than I thought would be, because especially because this type of character, it's very hard to, and you seem to actually get into it and give him a whole third dimension that I just was not expecting.
Yeah, I sort of came into my own in like the last 3 to 4 sessions of the game. Not to say I didn't I had a lot of fun up until that point. It's just that the last 4 sessions had been a general blast for me.
Is what I threw the little girl in there for. To sort of like sometimes, I'm perfectly okay with the players controlling their characters and, giving them life however they see fit. But you come to a situation sometimes as a player where you're like, I've painted myself into a corner. I didn't mean to do this, but I don't know where to go from here. And I don't know how to ask for help about this. I can't quite resolve this situation, and it just sort of festers there in your mind. To that extent, I wanted Marcus to become more than a bon vivant who spent his hours partying instead of, doing something, because we don't focus on his weaknesses or his strengths. He's played a role, but we've never had a Marcus vignette other than, the one time he went to the middleman ever so long ago. Like, this is Marcus. What is Marcus doing other than having fun? And so the ghost girl I placed in there as an opportunity for Marcus to interact with that directly in the hopes of provoking something from you, Jordan.
You provoked something, all right.
Get someone hunting him to death. But that actually brings me to the other thing that I really loved about what you were doing, Grimith. The one thing that I think made this more fun than anything else was that I at no point did it ever seem like there was a anything more than a three-dimensional world. No point was there a storyline we were following from point A to point B, or in the same way, at no point was there a sort of blank slate where we just had nothing to do. It was every single point there was something going on and something like actually intriguing.
Yeah, when something wasn't happening that we had to deal with, we had our own plans to deal with. And when we didn't have those, something happened to force us to interact.
Sort of enmeshment is not on my end as much as it is the players. If you were not invested and if you did not pour your minds into your characters and suspend your disbelief with the setting, then it would not have mattered to you. Because the setting mattered to you all, because you allowed yourself to believe in it and to become involved in your characters, you were able to make it come alive. That's not on my end. That's from the people who tell the story. That's you.
So on that note, I'm just going to ask, what was everyone's favorite moment for their character in the game? And for Aaron, pick either Jermaine or David or both. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, shit, that's hard. I don't know. I guess it was when when Jermaine sort of manipulated the party into bringing Kadir to Sevalot.
Yeah, that was pretty brilliant.
When he was playing devil's advocate in order to get them to go in exactly the opposite direction he was suggesting.
Yeah, and it was crazy because, of course, we all kind of had a bit of meta knowledge about it, but I'm like, there's no way Byron is not going to go along with this. I was like trying to figure out how can I not do this, and it was impossible.
Yeah. And Jermaine was being like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's. Are you sure it's a good idea to go back down there? I mean, come on." I liked that. That was good.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be it's twofold for me. I have to pick two, but they both involve guns. So it's the box where I blew that guy's head off, and it's the time I used my last lucky roll and killed that frickin' snowfucker thing. And that was
a good use of your last luck point.
Yeah, I had wasted the first. That's something, as an aside, is that, I mean, I don't know how it could have been done differently because it definitely was a concise story, but that went on for so long. I ended up burning my lucks a little soon, and there was like, which is fine. It made the end more interesting. I didn't have a safety net for what I was doing, but
yeah, I feel like this went on for a lot more sessions than the default definition of story is supposed to, but it was too fluid to really split up any other way.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if Byron doesn't survive the snowman, and David and Marcus die, that is the end of the story. Words. If
Right.
50% of the coterie dies, we gotta stop.
Yep.
yeah, Byron was going to turn tail and run if he missed again, but I think at that point, it was on top of him. I don't think he could have gotten away. I think he would have been grappled. His strength is not that big, so.
And that actually won him a lot of lasting goodwill from David, for one. Because David really did not think that Byron had it in him. Not killing the snowman, but standing his ground to it.
For Marcus, this might just be because I'm biased because it just happened last session, throwing the flower at Sean. I mean, at Joseph.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good, but I honestly can't think of many awesome things that Marcus has done. Outside of that have been just what Marcus has been doing. I mean,
I'll tell you what I liked when you went after that guy, that Fratelli guy, and beat the shit out of him. That was awesome.
what was that, session 3 or 4? Was that session 2 or 3, or was that session 1?
That was
That might
sometime
have
in
been
session
session
2, I think.
Session 2.
Yeah. Just sort of had a big brawl with that guy. Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, Marcus has done a few badass things here and there. Like, really badass.
Yeah. They've been badass, but they haven't been, things that have, stand out at, like, killing Dante Avant, or, killing Frosty the Snowfucker, or biting off a fucking tentacle.
Hey, I didn't bite it off. I ripped it off. Thank you.
You know what I mean.
Didn't you, dive at Frosty the Snowfucker in a frenzy, teeth first?
Yep.
That was cool.
That's where disassociative blood spending came from.
Yeah, that was worth it in my eyes.
I mean, I could have. Had I actually hit him with my attack, I might have been able to survive, but I would be in frenzy. But if things had been different, they would have been different.
They
etc.
sure would have.
Sean?
Oh, sorry. It I think out of any point, the most fun was the entire thing of the cat and mouse game with Marcus and Joseph. The whole back and forth. It's I know you know I know thing has to be it. It's not just the one point, just all of it all together.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I for one, I was on the edge of my seat the past couple episodes, just since Byron was definitely, wasn't even a third wheel. He was a fourth wheel off to the side. He had nothing to do with it. So I was very much a spectator. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I was really enjoying that.
I think in the end, Joseph knew that Marcus knew that he knew about the stuff that Marcus did. There was a lot of knowing.
Yeah, I think at the end everyone knew everything. It was just they didn't know if everyone knew everything.
Oh, another moment I really liked with Jermaine. When he pinned that vampire to the wall using the car, told him he would take an arm if he didn't talk, and then he took the arm when he didn't talk.
Jermaine was a man of his word. Yeah.
He was certainly a man of his word, if nothing else.
Yeah, you were very good to not have him lie ever. He just bent the truth a little bit, changed connotations here or there, maximum.
Jermaine Wallace was not a liar.
He just didn't tell the full truth.
Ever. But yeah, Jermaine's easy to pick out because he had a lot of really badass moments, especially for a ghoul, all clustered closely together. David had a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
But
Jermaine's stuff all came within the span of 5-6 sessions, and then the little interlude he had with Sevalod.
And it was all the more badass because he was a ghoul doing all that. I mean, some of the stuff that wouldn't have been overly impressive for a vampire to do, that was some badass shit.
I'll tell you, all those in your little interlude session, you made some really good rolls, willpower rolls against Sevalod. You made it a lot farther than I would have guessed.
Bitches don't know about almost max willpower and iron will. Yeah, the design philosophy I ended up going with Jermaine was after I realized there was absolutely no way he could ever, stand up against a vampire in an even fight. I decided to give him enough stamina to soak things pretty well, some armor to go with that, enough willpower and iron will to make him hard to manipulate and mind control, and then just stack things in his favor. He was very much built in his play style around the idea of arranging as many cards in his favor as possible. Play with a stacked deck and loaded dice instead of playing it fair.
Be an aspiration for all vampires, stacking the deck as much as possible. That is why combat is so rare in Vampire the Masquerade, because vampires don't want to risk final death.
Yep. And he played very differently from David, where David tends to watch and wait and gather information and try to find a way to fix it without actually confronting it, and so on and so forth. And I am personally glad that I got to play Germain instead of us just time skipping a month.
Think about what happened during that month.
A lot.
What wouldn't have happened during that month?
A lot.
Yeah, I think if we have to point to like the biggest game-changing event, it's got to be David Green just botching that infiltration interlude, shall we say? What was that, session 3 or 4? I mean, between those, when you had to make Germain. I mean, after you like threw into a rage and you had to make Germain.
Or is when David fuck snapped. Chapter 5 was the first appearance of Germain. That interlude there, where Aaron had to be absent, and thus we construct a little mini session from where he botched multiple times on something David Green can do.
Yep. He fucked up bad.
Which I point out to Aaron was, for all of David Green's knowledge about what he should and shouldn't do, David Green went into that with very little information, and that's a no-no.
And even if he hadn't, if he had rolled as well as his abilities suggest he should have been able to, he would have been able to get away with it. But yeah, those botches irrevocably changed the path the entire game took. Those botches irrevocably changed the who would end up holding the seat of the prince.
Yeah, exactly, because it goes all the way down the line and affects every single thing. So Kadir mainly, but it just, since, basically it affected Kadir, it affected everything later on.
Sevalod, the Samit, the Tremere fighting Sevalod, the Tremere massacre.
Yeah, you can say that, but I mean that tends to happen with any moment. If there were tons of monumental decisions that occurred, that one just stands out because of how much of an impact it made upon the coterie among you four as players, because Aaron had to switch characters. I certainly wouldn't make that as like a monumental change. If I hadn't created Sevalod then, there would have been some other moment over the course of the story where something else happened.
That's definitely fair, but the story as it ended up playing out was very much contingent on the fact that David was absent, Germain was there, and Germain took Leslie to Sevalod.
Still amuses me that Germain got away with taking Leslie Cutter to Sevalod Cerveni. What the hell is wrong with you people?
It's Byron's fault.
Because he was just convincing enough.
Because Joseph wasn't there.
Marcus was busy hunting. Byron was the only one who was left. I thought Byron had this.
Byron thought Byron had this. And then after that, when dealing with the fallout, Germain was just convincing enough.
Yeah, it was a close thing with Byron talking on the phone. I was going back and forth, and I was like, well, had you slipped up and ever lied, that would have been it. But you never did. It was just like right on the cusp, it was just little half-truth type things. So,
like I said, just convincing enough. Just barely. Just barely. That said, at that point, even if you guys had killed off Germain, it wouldn't have had that big of an impact. The damage was done.
pretty much.
Main had died, then he wouldn't be around to be interfering with shit like ghoulifying Dominic Gresman.
Yeah, but the Anarchs probably would have gotten someone else to do that.
If everything had been different, it would be different.
I know. You know what? The thing that shaped the entire campaign was David sticking around long enough to pull that corpse out of the pile of broken rubbish.
Nah.
There we go.
There we go, Aaron, claiming victory.
Fuck it, it's either one of my characters or the other character.
Oozed and fawned over each other's most favorite parts. What were your least favorites?
Well, I think I sort of mentioned it earlier as my greatest criticism. I personally did not like making Marcus just go off and party every night. But I'm just like, what else does he do? Shit. That was my least favorite part. Every single time Marcus went to party, except for like the last 4 sessions. There was a reason he was partying then.
There were a couple of sessions there that we kind of confusedly bumbled around, not sure how to actually pursue the things we wanted to pursue. Until, something changed and then we could finally pursue it.
Yeah, my least favorite part probably was there was probably a failure of me to live up to Byron's nature a little bit more, because he's a conniver and I never was able to put anything together to like gain a willpower back. Not that that was my end result. It's like I could never do anything for his character. If I had one regret, I probably would go back and make him like a capitalist or something, because I did a lot with finance. I could have been making his character happy over and over.
Yeah, I have to say that the early part was a little bit more rough. Like I picked all the stats in obfuscate so that Joseph could sneak around and backstab everyone that way, and he never did until like the very end of the whole thing.
Oh, and I'm disappointed I never got to diablerize an elder. Oh well.
Right, because you took that perk, right? The hidden diablery or whatever it's called.
Yeah, which fit into my backstory anyway because of, not being a known diablerist despite diablerizing my sire. I just wish I had been able to come up and play. That would have been neat. Or at least for David to have been tempted for it to come up and play at some point.
David ended up being the one who was put in torpor, not the other way around.
That happened a lot. And strictly speaking, from the very beginning, David felt like he was living on borrowed time because, he's a corpse now. But after that whole thing with the tentacle beast and, the stone, he really feels like he's living on borrowed time. Which is why the, suicide being a serious option isn't, existentially horrifying to him. Like it should be.